Social action regarding plastic. History of the plastic problem. The first reports of substantial quantities of plastic waste began in the 1970s. Despite global efforts to reduce and remove plastics, the use, production, and waste buildup of plastics has continued. Plastic waste is of a concern due to the amount of single-use plastic, the resistance to degradation, and its negative effects on marine life. Truly, the things that make plastic perfect for personal and commercial use have caused it to be both a positive and a negative. In 2018, EcoWatch reported that 300 million tons of plastic are sold yearly, and approximately 90% of what is sold will be discarded, end up in the ocean or landfills, and or in our bodies through our food supply chain. EcoWatch and author Olivia Rosen researched and provided a brief outline of significant dates and discoveries. In 1979, plastic grocery bags were introduced into the United States. By 1990, widespread use of non-biodegradable plastic microbeads began being marketed and used in multiple cosmetics. In 2007, San Francisco became the first city in the United States to ban the plastic bags, and in 2017, BBC's Blue Planet used their global platform in cinematography to educate on the impact of plastics and animals. Social action regarding plastic use. Although people have expressed concerns about plastic for many years, it appears that the global response only became full force after the BBC Blue Planet episode. This season finale included 6 minutes of images and voiceover demonstrating negative effects of plastics on sea animals. It has been referred to as one of the best uses of public television. The television station reported that they were overwhelmed with calls regarding the show and asking what they could do to help. These phone calls were the first step in social action. Social action is the result of working to make choices to take actions that benefit society. Motivation for taking actions in many cases may be reactive. In the case of the responses to the television show, the calls were reacting to the visuals of how plastic impacted and ended the lives of marine animals. The concepts of individual actions and aggregated consequences were soon in play. Many people joined cleanup efforts, while others individually began to make personal choices of change. Celebrities began to publicize giving up straws, plastic bags, and one-time use water bottles, and soon it was popular to not accept straws at drive-thrus and restaurants. This is also a great example of multiple pathways and common goals. Each individual was able to watch and learn about the harm of plastic in their environment and make decisions that were personal but significant to the goal of decreasing plastics. As with any type of environmental movement or social action, there are intended and unintended consequences. For many people, the subsequent changes and decrease in plastic use resulted in job loss. New ordinances, rules, and implementation were tested, found to be lacking, and rewritten. The application of the rules was inconsistent and confusing, and many businesses struggled with trying to follow the rules and the cost of following these rules. When discussing social action, it is important for volunteers and organizational leaders to be mindful of consequences at different levels and the intended and unintended consequences. There are many ways that applied social psychology has impacted the newfound desire to decrease plastic use. Social thinking. Many actions that people take are based on how they think or how they do not think. One technique of social thinking is to create doubt. For the social issue of plastics, activists had to work against advertising and products that presented plastic as a must. Activists had to create alternatives and promote the ideas of refillable water bottles, reusable straws, reusable bags for purchase, and in some areas, the option of no bags at all. This technique was coupled with the strategy of making the issue relevant to each person and providing both media information and graphic art installations to prevent memorable visual images regarding the longevity and the harm caused by plastics. Public service announcements, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit all provided a medium to show images of plastic causing harm to animals, huge sections of oceans covered in trash, and the idea that plastic has made its way into our food chain. These ideas work to attract different people for different reasons to agree that plastic is a problem and that they are able to make a difference. For many people, acting alone is sufficient and the most comfortable. For others, social relationships and the ability to engage and influence are powerful motivators. Social relations. The battle against plastic use is effective as the in-group is large, inclusive, and works for a common goal, while the out-group, the plastic manufacturers, oil and gas, and some retail chains, are seen as disregarding the environmental impact and often the villain. This creates a common goal for those working to decrease plastic waste and minimize the in-group conflicts. Additionally, there have been celebrities, perceived leaders, who use their social media to promote and encourage conservation and decreasing the use of single-use plastics. This touches on both persuasion and social action. When trying to persuade someone to change their beliefs, the ability to use multiple messaging techniques to promote the same or similar message is known to be effective in promoting changes in behavior. The ability of the in-group to overcome personal prejudice and stereotypes has increased their ability to get the message out to a broad section of people both domestically and internationally. The demonstrations against plastics is a global phenomenon. Social influence. Social influence is directly related to social relations and how people interact and are influenced to make change. As stated above, the ability to have a number of people who are different repeat the same thing over and over works to have other people believe the concept is true. If you believe a concept or idea is true, you're much more likely to act as though the idea is true. For people who are promoting the decreased use of plastics, the continued support of mass media and social media cause an exponential effect of awareness. Additionally, there is value in social action when people volunteer and make changes because they agree with the effort and that they are not mandated to volunteer. This intrinsic motivation produces inherent credibility and can be interpreted by others as being dedicated, honest, and credible. Additionally, understanding the diversity of motives helps organizers facilitate best use for each person and their leadership. Leaders have influence, and their influence can have intended and unintended consequences. Social thinking, social relations, and social influence have much crossover and many concepts in common. This crossover and multidirectional influence is also present when we look at social learning and the reciprocal determinism from Dr. Bandura. Dr. Bandura's primary study area was focused on social modeling, human self-development, and change. A key product of this theory is the triadic reciprocal causation. The TRC demonstrates that learning occurs with an ever-changing and reciprocal interaction between the person, the environment, and behavior. Emphasis is placed on social influence and the importance of both internal and external reinforcement. When you look at the reciprocal nature of the triad, it's easy to see how social thinking, social relations, and social influence work together to change or reinforce behaviors. From Bandura's theory, we look at the role and interactions between the person, the environment, and the behavior. While some theories tend toward the bidirectional or unidirectional influence, Bandura suggested that people and their behaviors are much more complex. He believed that each section responded to and operated on the other concepts. Thus, the self was influenced and was influenced by the environment. He reports that the personal conception of self, the behavior, and the environment are all reciprocal determinants of each other. Each area works with the other area to impact thought, feelings, and behaviors. Ultimately, it is the way we learn, interact, and how we learn to facilitate change. When discussing the relationship between the social psychology, learning theory, and plastic, the interactions between the self, the environment, and the behavior are quite clear. Plastic has a direct impact on many areas of the physical environment as a whole. By using the tenets of social psychology, persuasion, social action, and learning, individuals were exposed to the damage from plastics from multiple sources. The individual was then able to respond to directional influences from both the environment, input from multiple avenues, acceptance of personal impact from pollution, and awareness of ability to help, their personal desire to be involved, volunteer, participate, and facilitate the change. The behaviors that followed are directly impacted by both the environment and the person or self. Research methods. Research regarding plastic use and attitudes regarding plastic is limited. The research that is available has been descriptive, correlational, exploratory, and qualitative. The research studies have addressed actual number of bags and impact of change on the plastics industry have been both empirical and quantitative. A study in 2002 in Ireland was able to connect the small tax on the use of plastic bags in retail settings to a 90% decrease in plastic bag utilization within 5 months. As more and more evidence of decrease in usage becomes available, there will be more qualitative and quantitative research articles published. For current research, interviews regarding attitudes, self-reported plastic usage, and reports of plastic usage from retail are the most effective methods. Career disciplines for environmental social action. Psychology is a diverse and open field. When looking at the complex work of social action in the environment, there are many roles and opportunities for a psychologist. The role or discipline that meets most of the guidelines for social action and environmental impact would be the climate and environmental psychologist. This branch of psychology uses science to improve the interactions and relationships between people, organizations, and the environment. They work on effective messaging, disbursement of evidence-based research, and explore why some people may not adopt positive behaviors even after learning benefits. The second role for a psychologist with an interest in environment and social action would be a social psychologist. A social psychologist is very beneficial for social action and behavior change as they focus on processes behind and motivating human behaviors. A social psychologist will observe, test, evaluate, and provide insight into what will motivate and what will work or will not work as expected. Social psychology looks at how individuals perceive themselves, how they interact with groups, and how these interactions impact choice, beliefs, and behaviors. Applications. Social psychologists who are involved in environmental action are often on the front line of appropriate messaging. For most social actions interventions, there is much planning, coordination of resources, and mobilization of volunteers. For the social action regarding plastic bags, it appears that biologists who work with Blue Planet and BBC stumbled into the field of social psychology by producing a segment geared to education. This segment was only about 6 minutes long, but provided compelling visual evidence of the negative impacts plastic is having in the oceans and on aquatic life. Without direct instructions from the field of psychology, the short video encompassed many of the known elements of social influence. From understanding the audience to implicit nudge and modeling, the producers provided an incredibly persuasive presentation. As more and more people reacted to the video, the normative nature of social influence began to demonstrate an impact on public discussion, policy, and ultimately behavior. Social action by nature incorporates all areas of social psychology.